Best from Reddit. Those who have been in a coma. What was it like? When I was in 5th grade, I fell out of a tree and bonked my head pretty well. I woke up 3 days later in the hospital. For me, the experience is easily summarized in 3 parts. When I fell, I blacked out before I hit the ground. Or at least that is where memory fades. And fades is really the best word. It was as if my consciousness was drained away and then blackness and nothingness. It was as if my body knew how badly it was going to hurt and so it shut down. 2. I have very, very, very vague memories while in the coma of hearing my dad reading a book, or my mom telling me that she knew I would pull through, or of a tube in my nose. But these were always super fuzzy moments and I never was conscious during them. It was more like a half second of being aware of one particular thing. The way the tube felt being taped against my arm, and wishing I could reach out and move it, and then back into the nothingness. I think that I was somewhat aware of the fact that I was a little more aware each time that this happened, but honestly I am not certain of, say, even that much. 3. Waking up was sudden. So sudden. I was in blackness, had a moment of awareness, like my neck hurts, and then the pain was magnitudes higher. No longer a distant perception, but something that I was actively conscious of. Waking up was the most painful moment of my life, and I just started crying and then couldn't even cry, it hurt so bad. I think that had more to do with injuries sustained to my neck and head than the coma, but that is what it was like. After an hour, my body was used to the pain and I was totally normal, albeit very weak, hungry, and thirsty. I survived and I'm fine now without any lasting issues. I didn't have anything near as traumatic, but I did have a moment, I don't know, when I was a kid on a swing that was going out of control, so I tried to stop myself with my foot against the tree. I still don't remember ever hitting the tree, just the moments when I thought what I was doing would help. A big black scene missing. And then waking up on the ground holding my foot as it bled everywhere. Same happened to me. Friend and I were training for a 3-legged race, and like dumbass 9-year-olds, we just tied the ends of the rope to our ankles and run around. Naturally, my friend stopped as I was running. I ran out to the end of the line and my foot got yanked out from under me. I remember falling, but I don't remember hitting the ground. My next memory is my friend standing over me shitting herself and me going, "OMG, I blacked out, that's awesome." In 2016, I was in a coma from March 31st to May 5th, then half awake for another month after that. It was like the longest, scariest dream of my life. I was medically induced by a fentanyl drip for about a week at first, and let me tell you, fentanyl's a demon. Wacky dreams about fighting corrupt hospital officials, so my brain knew where I was. They didn't think I'd ever talk or walk again, but in the hospital bed, then I laughed at an episode of that 70s show and inclined every day after. Putting me at about 85% health overall these days, but pretty much an average guy. Oh, it was a head injury, had a seizure in the bathroom that made me fall into the sink. Similar experience, drip and all, but I had Guillain-Barré syndrome. I dreamed hallucinated that my younger sister was dead, cut in half, and they were making me lay on her severed body. When I woke up, the first thing I asked was how she died, and everyone looked at me like I was crazy. There were actually many times I believe they put a random dead body in my bed. Another one I had was about the nurses encasing me in concrete. I was paralyzed, so that's just how my brain processed it. I was aware of people talking to me and being with me. I just couldn't communicate, and my brain processed everything in this weird dream world. I had meningitis when I was 12, which got misdiagnosed for stomach flu, and ended up with me being taken to the hospital last minute. The last memory I had was falling asleep watching the emergency news on the Brussels airport attack. I later on had a sort of fever dream, which ended up to be true, about my parents driving me to TGEER saying, "It's okay," over and over again. I couldn't move or talk, so it seemed more like a dream than something that was actually happening. I saw the lights of the ER parking lot, which made me close my eyes, and after that it was like taking a nap. I had no awareness of time at all. It's like going to sleep and just waking up what feels like a second later, but it's actually morning already. I woke up 6 days later, highly drugged, but only gained consciousness the day after. My first memory after waking up is opening my laptop in the hospital bed to play Minecraft. I have no idea what happened or what I said when I woke up before that. Wakes up from a coma, shrugs, and starts up Minecraft. I can only compare it to when you're little and wake up at a friend's house and don't know where you are. I was in a coma for 2 months after a bad car accident. It wasn't medically induced, it was thanks to brain damage. When I woke up, I was alone in the hospital room and had no clue what happened or why I was there. I had a neck brace on due to a broken neck, so I figured something was wrong with my neck, but was unsure how or what happened. For some reason, I thought I was 60 years old. I was in my 20s. I was paranoid and scared, but didn't know why I was there. I used context clues to figure out I was in the hospital. It was frightening. After about 5 minutes, I decided to go back to sleep. 2 months of sleep wasn't quite long enough. For some reason, I thought I was 60 years old, Inception horn blares. Reposting from another thread, I talked about it. 2 weeks induced because of swine flu. During this time, Oprah announced she was ending the Oprah Winfrey Show. I was very upset to learn this after the fact. Mostly because the TV running in my room, plus the drugs they gave me to keep me under, gave the most cinematic dreams I've ever experienced. Somehow the news of Oprah retiring filtered into my brain as dreaming about saving the whales with her in a submerged Chicago. We had champagne brunch. It was excellent. I was also a superhero who could fly and fought my enemies on the rims of volcanoes. And then I woke up, and not only could I not fly, but my buddy Oprah had betrayed me into retirement. I was crushed. I wasn't in one for long, just under a week. While I was in the coma, I didn't remember a thing. When I came out of it, I just remember hearing my mom yell to the attending, "He's up!" Then I woke up with a bunch of white coats in the room. I was super stiff and incredibly confused. Oddly enough, I kept having vivid dreams of myself in the coma after the fact. Still have them to this day. They're almost like an out-of-body experience because I can see myself laying in the bed with people around me. I have those dreams about when I had the swine flu as a kid. I can see myself in my parents' bedroom and everything is a bit purple. Crazy, right? Every time I have one, I go back and ask my mom and dad if it was accurate. Some of them are, but others are completely off. This is so interesting to read everyone's experience. I'm an ICU nurse, and I work with patients in comas all the time. I talk to them, I let them know why I'm touching them, whether it be to give them medication, draw lab work, bathe them, clean them after an incontinent episode. I'll also reorient them to where, why, and how they're in that situation. I'll also tell them when their loved ones call to check on them. I would feel awful knowing someone I took care of had flashbacks of feeling violated during a coma. I do the same, although I'm a hospice nurse, so when they get to that stage, they're not likely to wake up again. But I talk to them all, tell them exactly what we're going to do and why. I treat all patients with equal dignity, whether conscious, unconscious, or after they've died. I still talk to them after they've died in the same way I speak to them when they were alive. Edit, oh wow, thank you so much, everyone, for the kind words and rewards. I did not expect anything at all. I don't see what I do as a job. It feels like it's what I was born to do. Ditto, to do. I honestly love my job, which sounds strange for working in a hospice, but all the staff there are like a family. We try and make the atmosphere there as positive and calm as possible. It's honestly an honor to spend such precious moments with people in the final stages of their life and their loved ones. It's something I definitely don't do for the money. It's a job that takes part of you to do. You give a little piece of yourself to everyone you care for, and I treat everyone with the care and dignity I would expect one of my own family members to have, if they were in that situation. Thank you again, everyone. Same here. Work critical care dialysis, and I always talk to my patients, telling them what I'm doing, how it's going to feel, offer reassurance, and sometime, unluckily for them, I hum or sing a song. I like to assume they can hear at least a little of what I'm telling them. I assume a coma is a scary place, and if I can offer even 5% comfort to them, then so be it. Thank you for doing what you do. I was in medically induced coma for about a week. The coma itself is not much to talk about. There is just a gap in your memory, even from before it happened. I don't even remember the accident that brought me there in the first place. Waking up from it is a much different story, though. Since I was fully dosed by painkillers and sedatives and whatnot, I was basically high as kite, and since the trauma I suffered was very serious. My brain constructed very stressful, vivid nightmares I remember to this day. OP, I was in a coma for almost a month, 29 days. The dreams were terrible, and I had a problem where if I smelled something that I could relate to pure oxygen, or the room I was staying in, it would trigger a flashback. I would literally be reliving it all over again. Bleach was almost guaranteed to trigger it. It gets better. And if you have flashbacks, tell your doctor. They put me on something that stopped them. A year later, I stopped taking the meds to see if I was better, and yes, my brain rewired. Bottom line is, I know what you are going through. You are torn with the knowledge it wasn't real, but it is remembered as clearly as any other real-life memory. It's called ICU delirium. Some people feel things are being done to them, like being buried alive or having legs and arms amputated. I had ICU delirium and had the most intense and horrifying delusions. I didn't know a mind could go to such dark places, but mine did, and it scared me half to death. It has taken months to get some of what I thought I was experiencing out of my head. I was in a coma for 3 days following a serious cycling accident, medically induced. I woke up with zero recollection of why I was there or what was said while I was out. It is easily the scariest situation I've found myself in, but I can't say I remember it. I woke up to my mom and dad in the hospital with me, and my body in traction of some sort, and that was way scarier to me. Glad you're still with us. Any side effects from the injury or coma? I was in a very short coma, 6 days, after a brain hemorrhage. I recall nothing during the coma. I have a fuzzy understanding of my first week or two after waking up, having pieced it together by the stories I was told, and memories of the days leading up to it were temporarily wiped out, though they have since returned. This was over a decade ago, so take this with a grain of salt. My memory in general is imperfect at best. Edit, and I should mention that my coma was induced so they could stabilize me and drain the blood via my skull. My mom had the same thing. Unfortunately, hers was so severe, and she died 5 days into her coma. I'm kind of glad that you don't remember your coma, because I like to think her last moments were having fun with her family, not being scared knowing she was gonna die. Was hit by a car when I was 5 years old, ended up with toxic shock syndrome, and went into a coma for 4 months. I just remember some very weird dreams, which I can still recall vividly 26 years later. Someone mentioned something about visiting another realm, and that's pretty close to the mark. What happened in these dreams? My favorite dream from the coma involved me floating over a huge gray-colored ocean, and I saw something rise up from the water that I can only describe as a dragon with scoliosis. It moved its head like it was smelling the air and then turned and looked right at me. In another one, my favorite cousin had abandoned me and now lived in the ceiling above my hospital bed with my 2 best friends, Jason and Jason, who were also twins. They just moved a tile out of the way and would just stare at me from above. Not me, but my dad has described his coma after his car accident. He was pulled up a little too far at a stop sign, and a guy who was speeding and on his phone swerved off the road, so he was in a coma for about 2 months. On my end, it wasn't like the movies. He didn't just wake up miraculously. It was 2 months of steady improvements. One eye opened, then a few days later his other eye was half open. Then he could wiggle a toe, then he could move his fingers, etc. On his end, he said he could hear bits and pieces of what was happening around him, but it was like a dream that he couldn't wake up from. When me and my 2 younger siblings would come in and talk to him, his heart rate would go down. When a football game was on and his friends came to sit with him and watch it, the nurses made them turn it off once his team started losing because his heart rate blew up. Edit. He's a fan of the Miami Dolphins, so I guess his HR never fully returned to normal. Edit 2, an award? I've never got an A-ward before, but seriously, thanks for the awards and the stories, guys. I don't know why this is so funny to me. Imagine being in a coma and your team losing affecting you this much. I feel like there's some comedy gold in there somewhere. I had a motorcycle wreck a few years ago. Someone texting blew a stop sign, and 8 ended up T-boning them. Not sure if coma is the correct term, but I was definitely unconscious for 2 days. Honestly, just felt like the worst, least refreshing nap in the history of naps. Had the wreck on a Sunday, woke up sometime Tuesday afternoon, evening, and asked if the bike was okay. It wasn't. I'd love a bike one day, but stories like this always scare me off them. My dad used to live in Vietnam and ride with him mates, and the amount of horror stories has scared the shit out of me. My wife was in a diabetic coma for 2 weeks when she was in elementary school. She knew her sugar was low, then all of a sudden she woke up in the hospital with absolutely no idea that any time had passed. Edit. I'm just gonna throw this shit down since this is blowing up. She loved this video. P.S. You can watch this video in the description below. Sugar inhibits our natural ability to time travel. Got it. There was a kid named Martin Pistorius who fell into a coma for 12 years, but his mind woke up 2 years into it. However, he was unable to speak or move, and everyone believed he was a vegetable at best. This wasn't the case. His mind was fully there. For over a decade, he was mistreated and in facilities that played. Barney repeats every single day for years without him being able to look away. True mental torture. He was also physically and sexually abused on top of that. At one point, he couldn't stop throwing up, so the nurse's tube fed him his own vomit. His parents were unaware of all this and tried adapting the best they could. In some of the lowest moments, he remembers his mother telling him she wishes he would just die, yet all he could feel was compassion for how she felt. Eventually, someone who cared enough realized he was responsive enough and got him the help he needed, and now he has a wife and kids, talks like Stephen Hawking, and is a computer programmer. Really shows how you can still emerge from the deepest, darkest places of life. If anyone is wondering, it happened to him due to cryptococcal meningitis. Fungus covered his brain and spinal cord. The disease comes from a soil with infected bird droppings being inhaled. One day he was just an innocent 12-year-old playing outside, only for his life to be changed because of simply breathing in some kicked-up dirt. Glad he came out on top in the end, his TED Talk. P.S. You can watch this video in the description below. Locked-in syndrome. I can't think of anything more terrifying. It was dark. I was in one for 4 months a couple of years ago, and it didn't feel like 4 months, just like a long sleep, with the occasional memory of my mom crying or begging me to wake up. I remember this vividly. I woke up in the hospital, surrounded by my friends and family, and the first thing I remember asking was, "You should have posted this with the serious tag." Our angry upvote. If you liked this video, don't forget to put a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave comments with your stories below. Watch our other videos, and thanks for watching.